some of the other types of altars that really wreak havoc on the system are the sabotage altars. I'll give you a few examples of what I had to deal with regarding that. The sabotage altar's job is to mess up the system and put it into chaos. When Allie came, she was really behind in her high school credits, to the point she had to go to a continuation school. So she would go for a few hours a day. They would give her packets of work, and she kind of worked at her own pace. They were telling me there's no way she's going to graduate, yada, yada, yada. I was trying to get her to work really hard and work really fast as she could, because I wanted to put her back into a normal high school. Like I thought, okay, if we can at least get her halfway caught up, maybe she could, for the last 6 months of the year, be put into a normal high school where she can go to prom and do the graduation and do all those normal things that high schools do. Invited her to attend the prom with her in a group of kids. So she was really excited for that. She never did get to go to a regular high school, but she did get to have a graduation. And then somebody invited her to prom. So we did the whole prom thing. She got to pick out her dress. Several of the kids were involved in the choosing of the dress and the shoes and the whole 9 yards. That triggered, anytime a survivor gets any kind of peace or any kind of happiness, you can take that to the bank that it's going to trigger their sabotage altars to shut that down. So in this case, there was, I think she was 11 years old. Her name was Talia. She was up on the system, and I started seeing indications, and the altars on the inside were telling me she was going to use the scissors and cut the dress up. So I knew the healing that would come from her being able to go to the prom. I knew that would heal a lot of the altars. I knew that would give them a sense of accomplishment, of normalcy. But I had to deal with the sabotage altar. So my first thought was, okay, well, I'll just take the dress and we will, I'll find somebody's house that'll hold it until prom. But I didn't like that option, because that was a Band-Aid situation. It didn't solve the problem. It didn't fix anything. It just delayed the inevitable with the sabotage altar. So I was racking my brain, like, how am I going to get around this? How are we going to solve the problem to an acceptable degree? Like, just putting the dress at somebody's house, that doesn't solve the problem, because it's going to pop up again. We're going to have another issue at some point in the future. If she doesn't cut the dress up with the scissors, we're going to have a problem at some point in the future. So I need a better, more permanent solution to that. If you spend time with me, my brain is kind of on a one-track mind regarding the MK. It's because for the last 15, 16 years, I've been solving problems and thinking around and thinking outside of the box and trying to figure out how to fix situations that seem impossible. So it finally came to me. I'm like, let's try this. So I had the kids that were excited about the prom. I said, go put on your prom dress and then meet me in the bathroom. So they came in the bathroom. I said, stand in front of the mirror. So they did that. And I said, all right, now go find Talia in the system and push her up so she can see herself in the dress. They did that. And when she saw herself in the dress, you could see the programming break off of her. You could see the pride in her eyes, the excitement in her eyes. It wiped away immediately that sabotage program. She said, it's beautiful. And then she said, can I go to the dress party too? I told her, yes, you can go, but you can't destroy things. You can't sabotage things. And so that solved that problem. It wasn't just a Band-Aid fix. We didn't just move the dress somewhere else, for the couple of weeks until prom. But when you understand the magnitude, so I've got 240 altars that I've documented. There's way more than that. But everybody's at a different level and has different programming, and it's an impossible task. There was another altar, and she had sabotage programming on her, and she would deliberately provoke when they were being trafficked. She would provoke some of the buyers, some of the Johns, to anger, and when they were about to hit them, then she would push somebody else up to take the beating. So they are programmed to self-destruct, essentially, into the system. They are programmed to cause chaos and havoc, and just keep them in a constant state of turmoil. And that's why it's so hard for survivors. There's no medicine that's going to fix that. I don't care if you had all the medicine in the world. I don't care if you found all the top minds in the world. You're not going to find any medicine that's going to fix that problem the way it needs to be fixed. And I'm not saying that survivors have a problem. I'm saying that the splitting and the chaos and the programming that was put into place, the best you're going to do is drug them up and put them into a zombie state where they're just lethargic and tired and feel numb. That's the best you're going to do with medicine for a survivor. Traditional counseling is not going to work either. You've got 240 altars, all in various states of trauma, of healing, of programming. So going to a counselor for an hour a week is a waste of time. You're not going to touch anything. You're not going to fix anything. You're talking to one altar. Maybe somebody will switch during that hour period of time, but to actually do any real work, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. I've been at this for 15, 16, almost 17 years, I think. And it's been a 24-hour-a-day job. And I don't mean, give me praise, because don't do that. I didn't do anything special. That's the very least I could do for another human being. And that's not saying that it was a chore. It's not a complaint. I'm just telling you the depth of the trauma requires more than an hour a week of counseling. It requires more than any medication that you can find. It's going to cost us as a society and as humanity something different. It's going to cost us our time and our love and our patience for survivors. And they deserve every bit of that and more. For all the things that they've been through, they deserve that and so much more. The most recent event that we've had with sabotaging was probably maybe a week or 2 weeks before Christmas. There were 10 new altars sent up to the presenting level, and the presenting level is the level of kids that you guys see and interact with on a daily basis. So when you see Allie on the live, when you hear about Teller and Maddie and Allie and Taya, they're all on the presenting level. They're in the system. That's the level that has access to come up and come down easily. The other levels, if you think of the high-rise apartment, the other levels are kind of locked into their places unless somebody summons them, unless somebody unlocks them and sends them down to the presenting level. And again, if you don't understand, go watch Inside Out. The emotions are altars. They're not, they carry the emotion, but they're altars, essentially. But anyway, so a couple weeks ago, there were 10 new altars sent up to the presenting level. So I already have the 30 or so 25 to 30 or so that we deal with. And now I've got an extra 10 new kids. Some of those kids are up to scout. Some of those kids are up to sabotage. Some of those kids are up to cause pain. When that many kids come to the presenting level, think of it as if you have a 2-story house, and if you tell you have a party and you've got 30 people over at your 2-story house, you tell everybody, let's go upstairs. That's going to create load bearing on the second floor. Now if you add another 10 people, that's going to create more of a load bearing on that second floor. And that's kind of what happens in the system. When that many people or that many altars are coming up into the system like that on the presenting level, it makes the kids feel heavy. It makes them feel draggy. It makes them feel like they're trying to run through mud. It really takes a toll on the system. One of the altars that was up, she said her name was Cynthia, S-I-N, no, I'm sorry, Cindy, S-I-N-D-E-E. Her name was Cindy, and emphasis on the S-I-N. She said she was woken up by Cynthia, which was one of Allie's handlers and programmers when she was a child. Cynthia, the programmer handler, had ties to daycares and elementary schools to the point where she had administrative keys to the daycares and the elementary schools that were under her charge. So when you understand, if you understood how many schools and preschools were complicit in Allie's abuse, y'all would probably pull all your kids out of school and homeschool them. Yeah, that's a whole other story for another day. But Cindy's job was to cause pain. So when that many new altars come, it takes a toll on the body. So they'll have hip pain or elbow pain or stomach pain. And a lot of people have witnessed this and can validate that. And I think a lot of them are going to talk on here in a little bit. But that was her job, to cause so much pain that it starts causing the adrenaline to flow. The people that woke her up are counting on that so they can repair the codes that were broken. We repair the programming that was broken, so they can gain access. As it stands today, today is January the 2nd, 2026. As it stands today, Allie was able to lock down the system. Allie and the altars on the presenting level have been able to lock down the system so they can't be accessed remotely. They can still send altars up and down, and the kids are working on that. But right now, as of now, they're not able to access her where they would normally be able to send new codes into the system, where they would normally be able to trigger things. They're not able to do that any longer. Her codes have been effectively broken that they cannot be used anymore. I don't believe those codes can ever be repaired. I think they're irreparably broken, and that was always my intent. I didn't want to just put a Band-Aid on the MK system and, just get through the day and whatever. I wanted whatever was done to Allie, that programming that was put in place that they keep pulling from and keep triggering and keep trying to use, that keeps her a slave. I wanted all that stuff broken, that it couldn't be fixed, so nobody could ever use that again. Nobody could ever use it against her. And I think we're well on our way to that. You can see the growth in Allie and the healing in Allie. That's not just, normal healing. Some bad things happened when I was a kid and I'm processing. That's not that. It goes much deeper with the MK stuff. The programming that was put in place, that's been falling off and breaking. The world, and I don't think they understand, but the world that has stood with us and supported us and prayed for us and came alongside of us and joined the fight with us, you've all been pivotal in Allie's healing. And not just Allie, because the other survivors have been watching. They've been watching real people rise up. They've been watching people that have a pure heart for the kids rise up and stand. So it doesn't just heal Allie, it heals the other survivors as well. But you can see the peace on Allie now compared to 5 years ago. And that's because she's been able to lock the system down, so evil people can't access that MK programming anymore. Do we still have issues? Yeah, we're going to have issues till Jesus comes, because we still have 66 levels of kids. We still have 25 to 30 kids on each of those levels that still have programming intact. But Cynthia woke up the altars she programmed send D to the presenting level to cause havoc, to cause pain, to try to get that adrenaline pumping and rising. So once it gets to a certain level, then they can try to access that way. And I know a lot of this is confusing. It's a massive topic, so trying to explain it cohesively is really, really hard. But that's where we're at with that. My aunt had a lot of altars. In hindsight, I suspect she might have had some MK programming. I didn't have the understanding at that time to ask or to think to ask. I was just learning about her DID. But she had an altar that was, my aunt was a small woman. She was probably, I don't know, maybe 5'2", maybe. She had hundreds of altars as well. One of those altars was named Serena, and Serena was overweight. So Serena was probably 300 or 400 pounds overweight, to the point that they tried not to let Serena switch and come up to the presenting level and come up and take over the body, because it would take such a toll on the body. It would cause so much pain for that kind of a switch to happen. The extra weight that Serena carried as an altar, when they switch or transition to come up and take charge of the body, took a physical toll on them. So there's so many things that go on with DID and MK Ultra. Our field of psychology is seriously lacking, and they're seriously teaching the wrong thing. You could, on that one subject, you could have a year's worth of college graduate level courses just on that one topic, and they don't. They barely acknowledge that it exists. They also program spinning, they program nausea, headaches, fear. They program all these things into MK survivors deliberately. So if an MK survivor is programmed with, they call it no-talk programming or something along those lines of where you don't say anything, that's usually one of the foundational things that, so after the father programming, then the mother, one of the first things that they go to is to train them not to talk. So they will set them up, they will do all kind of things, they will have horrific punishments if they say anything. So it is embedded in them not to say anything. So for Allie and the altars to have spent the last 5 years telling you guys the truth, that comes at a great price. And I don't think people are aware of that. And get a little irritated sometimes with, well, she didn't say enough, or she should say more. You don't understand the price that's being paid to say what she has. It's not just a matter of, oh, let me tell you the things that happened, and, you know, it's a little emotional for me, or it's going to cause me to remember some things, and I'll just have to process. No, it goes so much deeper than that. So for most MK survivors, they will have that no-talk programming in place. If they start telling too much, if they start saying things that they're not supposed to say, they will get sick. They will get nauseated. They will feel electric shocks in their body. They can feel whatever was programmed into them to keep them and to remind them to stop talking. For example, let's say that they have a kid and they're going to train them today to on their no-talk programming. So somebody might give this kid a sucker, let this kid eat a sucker. Somebody else might come in and say, hey, what'd you have today? Did you have a sucker? If they say, yes, I had a sucker, then they shock them. Then they spin them. So they put them in these chairs where they will spin them till they're sick and disoriented. So the next time, did you have a sucker? If the kid says yes again, they get shocked again, they get spun again, they get whatever it is they're trying to do. So by the third or fourth time, the kid now shuts up. Did you have a sucker? No. If they say yes again, or say 10 years from now, if somebody comes up and they start talking too much, those same sensations of being shocked, of being spun, will kick in, and as a reminder to them that they are talking too much and to shut up. There are 1,000,001 reasons why survivors don't come forward and don't speak up. This is just one. If you go back to the beginning, when Allie first started speaking out, we were still at her home in Apple Valley. She would start to do a video and speak out. The only reason I was ever on camera was she wanted me to sit next to her for moral support, because it was triggering so many things while she was trying to talk to y'all and tell you guys the truth. It would start triggering things. So she would say, can you just sit next to me? So I would sit next to her, and that's the only reason that I started being on camera at all. This is not what I wanted to do, but it was necessary for her to be able to speak. As soon as she would get off and shut the cameras off, she would vomit, and then she would be down and knocked out and sick for days. And then she would get up and we would start all over with the process. Now that doesn't happen like that so much, but it was a long process. So I am begging the world, please be easy with survivors. You can't take the way things work for you and the way you think things should be and put that on them, because they are dealing with things you have no comprehension of. So please be easy with survivors. Please be patient with them. The MK survivors are stronger than you and I will ever be. They are stronger than any soldier. They are stronger than the bravest, most courageous, most whatever person on the face of this earth. They are stronger than all of that, because they have survived things that you can't even imagine. So please be kind. Please be patient with them. Please love them unconditionally. So the things I'm describing about shocks being triggered, spinning programming being triggered if they talk too much, I call those booby traps, bombs, or trip lines, trigger wires or trip lines in their system. Those things were deliberately placed. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to show you kind of what that looks like. But anytime you get too close to a programming, no talk. So if you get too close to no talk programming, they've placed bombs. If you can imagine no talk programming in your head, just however you want to imagine it, and then think about bombs being set all around it. So if anybody gets too close to that, if anybody starts to defy that, if anybody starts to poke at that, these bombs and booby traps will trigger. And it will push the survivor back from talking. So they'll remember the trauma and the abuse that happened, whether it was the shocking or the spinning or whatever, and they will stop talking, and back up and leave that alone, because they know they're going to get sick. They know there's a punishment coming from that. So there's just so much, and I hope you're grasping this. Somebody deliberately thought, let's put this programming in place so these children never tell. Let's torture them on top of the torture that they've already had. So if they ever do start to tell, now they have to pay another price. So not only have they been abused in the beginning when they were children, now we've put programming on them. Now we've split them. Now we're going to put a booby trap there to protect them. To protect them from talking. So anytime they start to think about telling the truth, something's going to happen to them to remind them to shut up. On top of that, we're going to put sabotage altars. So we're going to traumatize them enough to split. And this new split altar is going to be programmed to sabotage the system. Do you understand the depth that I'm trying to explain to you of what they've done to children? We carry puke bags in the car. Allie blacks out. She has pain that can't be described, that will just come out of nowhere and leave out of nowhere. She blacks out. Her stomach does crazy things. And there's a couple of, heroes that stood with us and witnessed a lot of these things. They're going to address that. But there are so many things that they've done to survivors. If you guys can really wrap your head around that, the world would be in the street with pitchforks demanding those involved be brought out into the streets and lynched. There's no coming back from that. If you harmed a child to the point of MK Ultra, and you put MK Ultra programming on any child, you deserve death immediately. That's just how I feel about it. Nobody's talking about what it's like for survivors to live with this. But I've seen Allie live with it for the last 16 years. And anybody that's involved in that deserves death. And that's just how I feel about it. There have been so many times that Ellie has blacked out. And by blackout, I don't mean like you stand up and you start to feel a little woozy, so you sit down, or things start getting a little dark, so you know you might pass out, so you sit down. She could be in a standing position and in a split second just hit the ground. There is no preparing for that. There is no bracing herself for that. I can't tell you how many times she's hit her head on things. It's like somebody just pulled the power cord and just shut her completely down, and she just drops to the floor. There have been so many times she's had what looks like grand mal seizures. Has nothing to do with any medical issues. She's been scanned and checked and everything through the doctors in the hospital. There's nothing physically wrong with her. It's MK related. There are times when it happens, much less now, but early on, and a lot of the heroes have been able to witness this, her stomach will roll. I don't know how to explain that. I'll try to see if I can find something online that's similar. Her eyes will roll back in her head, and there's also a lot of times where her stomach makes a knocking sound, and I'll see if I can find something like that, but it sounds like somebody's in her stomach, in the soft part of her stomach, so she could be laying perfectly still, and you will hear this tapping or knocking sound in her stomach. There's no, from a nursing background, there's no explanation for that, and I'm not the only nurse that's witnessed that. There have been others that work in the nursing field that have said, I don't know what this is. We've had massage therapists, friends of ours, some of the heroes were massage therapists. They're like, I don't know what that is or where that could even be coming from. There have been so many weird anomalies that can only be accounted for under the MK Ultra tagline. And I'm gonna let some of the heroes and some of our friends speak to that, what they've experienced in their own words for y'all. There are times when there will be triggers in her body. She will say she feels like somebody has her voodoo doll and is stabbing it. There's just been so many weird body things. When she did her first speaking event, we were in New Mexico. She spoke for, I don't know, maybe an hour or two. We had intended to speak longer there, but she started getting triggered. Some of those bombs and booby traps started going off because she was speaking too much. So we cut it short. She went into the back. Her body started overheating. Much the way, so if you think of when your cell phone, when it starts getting hot, something's wrong with the battery starts overheating. She started overheating. In the back room, it was kind of a cement floor. She laid on the floor. It was 50 degrees at least. It might have been a little bit less. So the floor was already cold. We had to get ice to pack her in ice, just to cool her body down. And that was a booby trap or a bomb or whatever you want to call it, a trip line, whatever you want to call it. It got triggered and set off in her body, and it caused that reaction, and it caused her to stop speaking, because now we had to deal with this problem. So life is not easy for survivors, and nobody's talking about that. We kind of, oh, so-and-so's got MK, and I think they got MK, or they got MK'd. We kind of make light of it, but you don't understand what survivors are going through. Allie hasn't been trafficked since she was, I'd have to look at the timeline, since she was 16, 17-ish. she was still being accessed a little bit. But for the most part, let's just say for the last 10 years, she's not been accessed trafficking wise, but she's still dealing with the fallout of it. She's still dealing with the fallout of the MK Ultra. She's still being targeted and gang stalked. We're coming on the heels of this smear campaign, and I hope we get the opportunity to go through that so I can use that as a teaching tool. There's so much information in there that is used as a teaching tool of what they were doing to survivors. Allie's not the first one to go through a smear campaign, but we're going to be the first one to break it down for you and tell you what it was they were doing. They weren't just randomly shit talking and making stories up. They were deliberately doing things to trigger Allie's programming to get her to fall back in line. They don't understand that her programming has been locked down, so they were using old tactics to get her programming back in line, but it didn't work. And I already knew what they were coming with. Allie and I didn't watch any of that. We had admin that would kind of take the highlights. We had some other heroes that were documenting all that, saving it on archives, because I have a feeling they're probably going to pull all that down pretty soon here. But we have it all saved. So if anybody ever wants to teach on that, about what they do to survivors and the patterns of that, there's one thing you can always take to the bank. Evil has patterns. Evil does the same patterns over and over and over. Once you learn those patterns, you'll learn how to step around the bullshit, essentially. One of the weird things that Allie would say when she first came was that she couldn't do this, or she couldn't do that, or she had to do this because she was serving her country. I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? Because that's nothing that I would expect to hear from a child. That's something I would expect to hear from a soldier, that, they're serving their country. But she was very adamant that she was serving her country and that she couldn't do this, or she couldn't do that, or she couldn't talk, or just various things like I can't, I'm serving my country. And shortly after that, it started being about sexual things. Like she started disclosing, we did this, or we went to this 4th of July parade and we had to be naked for this and that. And I said, well, why were you doing that? And who would do that to a kid? And she said, well, we have to. We were serving our country. And so that's what started alerting me that there might be something bigger going on, that, we dealing with some extra things that I don't even know what to do with at this point. One night, it was around 3 a.m., one of the kids came up, one of the alters came up. She was pretty new to the system, and she asked for a piece of paper. And I gave her a poster board, and she starts sketching the system. The part of the system that she knows. So if you think of a huge blueprint, big enough to hang on a wall, a big enough blueprint that it takes 2 or 3 people to lift off the wall in whatever frame it's in, that's the size of the blueprint that pertains to their system. So she started sketching out the portion that she knew. So each of the alters knows a portion. No one alter knows all of it. As she's sketching this out, I'm like, okay, whatever. And then she starts writing mathematical code to that, and that shook me. That's probably in my top 10, my list of top 10 things that really shook me, because at that point, I was creeped out. I knew we were dealing with something entirely different. That's not just a kid that had a little bit of trauma and maybe split. Her psyche might have split and she's got some alters. Now we're dealing with some next level stuff. Other things that were deliberately programmed into the system: suicide, anorexia, ADHD, autism, cutting. Early on, I had the only person that I could find that could help was a counselor. He was familiar with DID by the time I found him, I was already so frustrated because nobody knew what I was talking about. Everybody said, well, DID is uncommon and it's not, not that many people have it and it's very rare. And I'm like, bullshit. I knew better, but I couldn't find any help for Allie. So he was the only one that even knew what I was talking about. So already I was like, it was like a breath of fresh air. But his treatment plan was kind of to put them in a hypnotic state and try to get them to process. Well, that may or may not work for DID. It sounded plausible at the time. I wasn't understanding at that time how far how much of her MK Ultra came into play with the DID. So we went a few times to him. It didn't go well. It set off a lot of bombs and booby traps in her system. That was before that I knew there were bombs and booby traps in her system. So I didn't know to watch out for that. It was just the only option that we had. I try like every 4 or 5 years to revisit, everything to see if there's anything new in place, if there's anything new that might help her. But that's where we were at that time. So we had gone to him several times. It was causing problems in her system. It was setting off the booby traps, and making her sick and altering the system and essentially locking things down. So if you were to go to the bank and say, and try to force your way into the safe or the vault that they have precautions in place that are going to lock that down right away. So you can't even gain access. And that's essentially what was happening. But I didn't know at the time that's what was happening. But anyway, after a few visits, it got to the point where he said, you know what, she's out of the scope of my practice. I can't, there's something bigger going on here. He's like, the only option I have, I know there's somebody maybe up in Idaho, where she could sign into a hospital, and they could try to deprogram her. And I said, absolutely not. And then he told me, he said, I had one other client at one time. He was military, and he had MK Ultra programming, and he's like, I wasn't able to help him, but they had essentially programmed ADHD into this soldier, with the pretense, I think he was a sniper, with a pretense that it made him a better soldier. So when they were sending them out into the field, they essentially programmed ADHD into them to make them more hyper vigilant and hyper alert. So there's that. There's just a lot of shady things, and people need to start looking into things a lot deeper. You're finding out about the fraud and the corruption and a lot of wasteful spending for our tax dollars, but it goes way deeper than that. They have been doing human experiments, and once you sign on to the military, you've opened yourself up to that. And I love our military, and I love my country, but there's a dark side of things, and there's a normal side of things, and we need to start figuring out where that dark side is and get rid of it, because it's evil. It's destroying people. It's using people as experiments. It uses people as property. It has no regard for our children. It has no sanctity of life. We're trying to live in this world with this evil that most people aren't even aware that exists. So in 2026, I pray to God that people rise up, and start being the humans we were created to be. Some of the other types of things that go on in the internal system are suicide. They will pre-program suicide dates into the system. So if they've not got called back, if they've refused to go to when they get callback programming. So the way that looked for us, we lived at 5908 Robinson Avenue in Riverside. We lived kind of up on a hill. People would come and park their car down the hill. We had a fenced yard, but they would trigger Allie's programming to the point she would go into a trance. She would not be able to see me anymore, and she regardless of what time it was, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, she would just get up. I have to go. I'm like, where are you going? What do you need? I'll take you. What do you need? And I have to go. I have to go. That's callback programming. They trigger it to get survivors to go to rituals. They trigger it to get survivors to go to meetings where they're reset, or they reset their programming, or they fine-tune their programming. If those things are not obeyed, if they don't go, if they're blocked for some reason from going back, they have suicide dates programmed into their system where they will commit suicide. The kids, the alters on the presenting level had told me early on, essentially begged me, please, I don't care what it takes, do whatever you have to do. Do not let us go to those rituals. So after she, I started protecting her that way. A lot of people give me a lot of grief, and that's fine. But you're not understanding what life is like for a survivor, and how much stuff they go through, and how much people infiltrate their lives and override their free will. But with suicide, and we might need to do a separate video on suicide, because a lot of the kids' suicide programming got triggered. The things that I'm describing to you kind of came for a time and a season. So cutting came for a season. The sabotage came for a season. Do we still deal with that? Yes, sometimes, but not like we did during the season. The anorexia for a season. So there's things that come for a time and a season. When the kids kind of process and work through those things aren't such a big issue anymore. They kind of fall off. Can they still pop up? Yes. But it's not to the intensity that it was. So when we went through the time with the suicide, I can tell you that demons and altars, there are some altars that are programmed for suicide, and they get triggered. And then there are demons that come and will just torment a person. And I've witnessed that, and it's horrific. I've witnessed that the same way I witnessed what happened in the flashbacks. Demons will just constantly, you're no good, you're worthless, the world will be better without you, just berating you over and over and over until you can't take it anymore. And you end up killing yourself. And there's usually, for the MK systems, there's usually an altar that's their job. That's what they were programmed to do. So if you are struggling with suicide, yes, please get help. Seek any help you can. But please know there's something outside, and demons that torment you like that. I know a lot of people don't believe in Jesus Christ. We do. But if you play your Bible reading, for a lot of us, a lot of the times that we had to deal with those types of things, my first thing, the heroes in them will tell you is put worship music on and put Bible reading on. That helps give clarity of mind, whether you believe in Jesus or not. A demon's job is to cause confusion, is to speak to every insecurity that you have, to twist and distort reality. And when you understand, for the MK survivors, those things have been put into place deliberately. Another issue that we dealt with was cutting. One of the altars was a cutter. When you cut, you are making a blood ritual. If you are an MK survivor and you're cutting, you're making blood rituals. That gives them access to access your system. That gives them access. Essentially, you're making pacts with the people that program you and the evil. So I had this altar, and we went through a time and a season of her needing to cut. So, I'm racking my brain. Like, what can we do? I bought her we called him the punching man, that rubbery guy, and he's on a stand and you can punch him. If you feel irritated or agitated, go punch the punching man. Well, that didn't meet that need because that cutting was programmed into her. It was programmed into her because of the blood rituals. The blood for a survivor is very vital to the programmers and the handlers and to satanic rituals. So my next thing was, okay, let's get a red Sharpie. And when you feel like you need to cut, just put those red lines. So you're seeing that you kind of have cut there's the red line that's going to mimic that. That didn't work. So, now I'm racking my brain. Like, how are we going to think about this? Like the dress, like now, how are we going to get around this? Because with MK Ultra programming, you can't just hit it head on. I can't just say, stop cutting. That's not going to work because she was programmed as a child to do those things. I can't say, well, if you cut it, you're making scars. That's not going to matter. If you cut, you're going to get an infection. That doesn't matter. The programming is stronger than almost everything. That's why they do it in children, because they get a hold of their mind and they lock those programs in place, and they're very hard to break. You can't just come at it head on. You've got to think around the problem. So I finally got to the point, like, look, you know what? I love you. I can't stand to see you go through this. I don't want you to make a blood ritual because that's going to make more problems for the system. I said, if you need to cut, I put my arm out. I said, you cut me instead. And that might sound weird to some of you, unless you're a mom, a desperate mom trying to figure out any way to help your kid. And that's where we were. I would rather you cut me than cut yourself, because I know it's going to make bigger problems for you. And something about that I didn't know at that time was able to break that programming. It was unconditional love. It was, I'll stand in the place for you. And that kind of broke that programming. Does she still try to get poked? Yeah, every now and then with that need to cut. But by now we understand, and they understand where it's coming from, why it's coming. So it was a time and a season, and now we move on to something else. We'll go ahead and end here, because I know that we've got a lot of things to insert. We might need to do a little bit more, but I'll just attach it to maybe the technology of other things that go on in the system. If you understand anything about MK Ultra, know that our government, our CIA, the dark sides of the Navy and the Army have been involved in this evil against children. For the sole purpose of creating slaves, for the sole purpose of suffocating the life out of another child so that they can control it completely to do whatever it is they want to do. There's no greater evil than that.
This is Princess Leia. I met Allie in 2022. I met a few of her alters. I noticed that their voices change. The younger alters exhibited, childlike mannerisms.
And this is Han Solo. I just noticed her facial features change when she would switch alters. I noticed her eyes would sometimes change colors, go from darker to lighter. And just as well as her mannerisms overall would change.
Shelly described the inner chaos well. It takes all of that just to do everyday stuff. Imagine how much longer making breakfast would be with 2 teens, 4 older kids, 2 preschoolers, 4 toddlers, and 3 infants. Then there's the external chaos. MK slaves are valuable tools and were very expensive both in time and effort to create. Like all highly valued government instruments, it is closely monitored. Most MKs are kept in webs of a handler, reporters, maintainers, and controls. Most will be people close to the slave, family, friends, schoolmates, co-workers, healthcare providers, etc. People deliberately moved into the slave's life so that they don't veer too far off of the designated plan. The Truman Show is an excellent example of this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What if?
Morning, Spencer. How's it going?
What if you were watched every moment of your life?
How many cameras you got there in that town?
5,000.
I believe Truman is the first child to have been legally adopted by a corporation.
That's correct.
Brilliant.
What if everyone you knew was pretending?
Hi, honey. Look what I got at the checkout. Dishwasher safe.
I'm not allowed to talk to you.
There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
What if you didn't know it? Until now.
I highly recommend watching it. Slaves are also anchored in their pre-planned roles with trauma and trauma bonds. Truman lives on an island, a very popular place for evil of all kinds. He had the orchestrated, also known as false flag trauma, of his father's boating accident, to anchor a fear of the ocean, which keeps Truman from wanting to leave. His marriage to his wife Meryl was pre-planned. Although he was not aware of it, she is used to keep him in his role. When Truman starts to become aware that he does not live in the world he thought he did, Meryl and his friend both gaslight him and ask him if it feels okay to try to divert his attention with sex, alcohol, and going on vacations. This is a common occurrence for many survivors. If those are ineffective, then relational trauma bonds are pulled, so that guilt and shame get deployed. Meryl is often seen shaming Truman for not doing more, judging his hobbies and demonstrating to him that he isn't good enough. Then when he reacts, she reminds him of how much she loves him and of everything that they have experienced together, and her hopes for their future. These emotional warfare tactics are another way to ensure the slave does not leave. When Truman finally wakes up to the show he's been living in and tries to escape, a whole series of obstacles is enacted to stop him. You have witnessed this with Allie in numerous ways.
To every survivor of childhood sexual abuse, a lot of you started speaking up in the comment section after the last segment. I want you to know I see you. I want you to know how proud I am of you for speaking. I know that's a scary thing. I know a lot of people have hid from it for most of their lives. But I'm proud of you for finding the courage to speak now. I probably can't respond to all your comments, but I want you to know that I read them, and I'm giving honor to your story. And I'm so proud of you for being able to speak up. I will continue to fight with you, and I will continue to fight for you. I will continue to stand with you against every predator of children. And I want to encourage you to keep using your voice and keep speaking the truth of what happened to you, because it heals something in you every time you speak on it, and every time you verbalize it. It heals you on the inside, and it also gives other people courage to do the same. People that abuse predators will often make them think it's their fault. They will heap shame and guilt on them. They will make them believe that nobody will believe them or listen to them. And by doing that, the child survivor kind of just backs up and stays quiet. That protects the predator. And it basically silences the victim. Every victim carries guilt and shame. And most survivors believe that evil just happened to them. They feel alone, and they don't know that it also is happening across the globe to millions and millions and millions of other children. Once we can normalize speaking out against child predators, once children and kids younger than us can see us standing up and speaking out, that gives them the courage to stand up and speak out. And when that happens, hopefully we can start protecting children in a better way. It's my prayer that an army will rise up that will use their harm and their scars and their trauma to protect other children. If you've had any type of trauma, MK Ultra, satanic ritual abuse, sexual assault, trafficking, if you've had any type of trauma as a child, the goal of that was to render you powerless, to strip you of your ability to fight back. But it's my prayer that if everybody that has that type of trauma stands up, starts speaking, starts sounding the alarm, then we can create a safety net for the children that are coming behind us. Every voice matters in this fight because we are fighting for the children. I'm going to put a little clip in here. One of my friends put me onto the Horton Hears a Who. When all the little voice, everybody that had a little voice, they had to come together to make a loud voice.
We are here! We are here! We are here!
We are here! We are here! We are here!
Come on! Everybody! We are here! We are here! We are here!
You need to make some noise down there, or we'll all be destroyed!
The mayor grabbed a tom-tom and started to smack it. And all over Whoville, they whooped up a racket. They rattled tin kettles, they beat on brass pans, on garbage pail tops and old cranberry cans. They blew on bazookas and blasted great toots, on clarinets, soompas, and boompas, and flutes.
There! Can they hear us now?
Listen, please! It's the most beautiful thing ever!
I don't hear nothing.
I don't think so, but keep trying.
They had to come together to make a loud voice for change and to protect themselves. That's what's happening right now. So keep going. I stand with you. I will fight with you. I will fight for you. I will stand against predators with you. Keep raising your voice, even if you think your voice is small or insignificant. It's not. Let's make some real changes. God bless.
My hero name is Huntress, and this is a brief witness statement describing some of the experiences I had while with Allie and Shelly. I first met the women during their frequent encounters with the police, who kept pulling them over in multiple states and engaging in the gang stalking. I witnessed the police circling the gas station where we initially met. They made sure we noticed them winking and blowing kisses in an attempt to intimidate us. As we left the gas station and drove onto the main road, one of the cars in our group was pulled over. While we waited, we went live on social media for our safety. Suddenly, the officer tossed the driver's paperwork at her and sped off due to a more urgent matter. Divine intervention, no doubt. As we took the women to a safe place, the presence of the Holy Spirit was strongly felt among all of us, as if we were protected by the blood of Jesus Christ, making us invisible to harm. Every traffic light turned green and every lane was clear until we reached the safety. I witnessed an incident where a witch and warlock almost kept us confined in a house. I know it sounds unbelievable, but the events inside that home were just as strange. We had no idea that Allie was trapped in the bathroom with the spirit. I recall one of the heroes checking on her and then rushing down the stairs carrying Allie because some witchcraft was being performed on her, leaving her incoherent. Once again, divine intervention saved us and got us all out of there safely. In another instance, I was at a house with Allie and Shelly while the same group of cars kept circling the property throughout the night. In that same house, I saw a car pass by and Allie suddenly collapse, hitting her head hard on the floor. She was like lights out, on-off button, just, it was crazy. And then later, as we were loading the cars, I noticed a man lurking behind a tree across the street. When Shelly went to confront him, I swear, he suddenly transformed into a woman who then denied doing anything wrong. She then gave a flimsy excuse saying she was walking her cat, not spying on us. I have noticed drones tracking us. I have sensed unseen forces striking my vehicle, which we call the all-seeing eye being flung at us. I've observed total strangers in public places joining forces to gang stalk Allie and Shelly, as though they were all being influenced by an invisible force. During all of this, Allie also had to cope with her flashbacks, and the constant attacks which she describes as them using a voodoo doll to inflict pain and suffering. You could visibly see her body reacting to what was being done to her. And I mean, I'm talking like bruises, redness, swelling, body contortions. She was barely able to walk, sleep, or keep food down. The best way I can describe what sound I would hear coming from Allie's body, or more accurately, her stomach, resembled a metallic clicking sound, almost like a gear turning, and you can feel it as well. And this was a daily occurrence.
My hero name is Elastigirl. I have witnessed many things with the ladies. My first time I met the ladies was February 22nd, 2021, when they came to Colorado. One of the things that I witnessed with Allie was when I gave her a hug. I thought I broke her because she made this horrible popping sound, and it's not like when you pop your bones. It sounds like, I don't know, the best example that I have is the children's toys where you can pop them into place that has like a ball and a suction cup on the other side, and you pop them together or you pop them out. It sounded like that, but underwater. And her little body would just jerk. Hurt my heart so badly. I've also witnessed her go down and hit the ground so hard. I've seen that, I want to say 2 or 3 times, maybe more. Yeah, maybe 3. I have witnessed well, let me explain to you. When she goes down hard, and we pray over her. We do whatever we can to get her to come back.
Hello, my name is Harley Quinn. I've known Allie for many years now. I have experienced things such as her dropping to the ground as if somebody turned off a light switch. I have seen her alters change. That could be eye color, muscle tone, body build. Her voice is different. I have seen her drop to the ground as if somebody just turned off a light switch. I have seen alters cycle through. I've seen deaf alters. I've seen autistic alters. I've seen baby infant alters, and they cried that infant cry. There's also like a ticking in her stomach that is absolutely unexplainable, but there is a ticking or a knocking that happens, and it comes from the inside of her stomach.